Legal emancipation. All the bad kids I grew up with knew about the summer cabins out at Cultus Lake. Not the really nice ones that the rich people own down at Lindale Beach, the seasonal ones that are close to Sunnyside and Maine beaches. People would come from all over the world, rent out those cabins, and spend the summer at Cultus Lake. The rest of the year, they were usually vacant, and most of the landlords lived in Vancouver and didn't check in on the cabins once summer season was over. So us bad kids would often break into one of those cabins and throw parties there. Sometimes we'd get caught, but only when the parties got too big and things got out of hand. Mamie and I had already broken into one of the cabins the week before and set up a safe house for Butch. The cabins don't have electricity, so we made sure that there was plenty of wood for the fireplace. There also weren't any running water after they shut the water off once the summer's run had concluded. But there was an outhouse out back and full shower facilities that were open during the day at Main Beach, even in the off season. It was very dark that night, riding from Mission to Cultus Lake, but also exhilarating. Mamie and her cousin chatted excitedly as June and Butch navigated the way to the safe house. I gave Butch a squeeze around his waist and said, "I'm so glad we found you." We built a huge fire and roasted up some hot dogs and marshmallows and had our first grand feast at the safe house. After Butch and his little cousin had safely settled, June and I rode the horses back to her place. Mamie stayed overnight at the safe house with her brother and cousin. When I was a kid coming up, one of the ways teenagers in British Columbia could get themselves out of abusive family situations was through a process called legal emancipation. Basically, once you're legally emancipated, you're an independent adult responsible for yourself. If someone tries to kidnap you, they're committing the same felony that applies to any other adult being kidnapped. And it was also one way to prevent yourself from being returned to a residential school like St. Mary's, which, despite all of the priests and nuns, was now officially run by the Canadian federal government, not the Catholic Church by this time. Not a lot of people knew that, and the condition at St. Mary's actually got worse after the government took over, by some accounts. You had to be 16 years old to qualify for legal emancipation, and Butch had just turned 16 earlier in August that year. So he applied for and was granted legal emancipation, got a job working at one of the local Salish Weavers organizations, and finished his grade 10 and went on to eventually graduate from our secondary school. Butch and Mamie's little cousin stayed with their grandmother for a few weeks after notifying the family in Port Alberni. He eventually returned to the island and ended up moving in with another of their aunts and their families. He made it to adulthood without getting scooped up again. Approximately 2,000 children attended St. Mary's in various incarnations, most of them Stolo. When the government-run school was closed in 1984, it was the last functioning residential school in British Columbia. At least 22 children either died or went missing while at school, and countless more were horribly abused and traumatized.